Good morning. My name is Natasya, and today I'm gonna explain the seven fallacy that has been given to me. First is red herring fallacy. Red herring is a kind of fallacy that is an irrelevant topic introduced in an argument to divert the attention of listeners or readers from the original issues. In literature, this fallacy is often used in detective or suspense novels to mislead readers or characters, or to induce them to make false conclusions. For example, a teacher catches a student cheating during a test. Or another example, so it's a conversation between a mother and a daughter. The mother said, "It's bedtime, Jane." And Jane said, "Mom, who do ants feed their babies?" And mother said, "Don't know, dear, close your eyes now." But Jane said, "But Mama, do ant babies cry when they're hungry?" This conversation shows that a child is trying to distract their mother so that she can stay awake a little bit longer. Second fallacy is that strawman. Strawman is a form of argument and an informal fallacy based on giving the impression of refuting an opponent's argument, while actually refuting an argument that was not represented by that opponent. One who engaged in this fallacy is said to be attacking a strawman. The typical strawman argument creates the illusions of having completely refuted or defeated an opponent's proposition through their covert replacement of it with a different proposition. For example, stand up a strawman, and the subsequent refutation of that false argument knock down a strawman instead of the opponent's propositions. For example, Caroline says that she thinks her friends should not be so rude to the new girl. Jenna says that she cannot believe that Caroline is choosing to be better friends with the new girl than the girls who have always known her. Biology teacher begins teaching evolution by stating that all things evolve. Students say she just can't accept that humans came from bugs. These two examples shows that it is a strawman fallacy. The third is a false cause fallacy that occurs when one cites two sequential events as evidence that the first caused the second. So the first event is literally connected to the second event. The argument generally looks like this: event A happened, event B happened after A, therefore A is caused by B. For example, Napoleon became a great emperor because he was so short. It shows that if Napoleon can become an emperor because he's short, so A caused by B. And second example is that every day I eat cereal for breakfast. One time I had a muffin instead and there was a major earthquake in my city. I've eaten cereal ever since. Due to the earthquake that happened, she kept on eating cereal instead of muffins. The fourth fallacy is that a weak analogy. It occurs when a person draws a comparison between two concepts, situations, or things to link them together in an argument, even though the connection between the two is not strong enough to make the case. For example, believing in the literal resurrection of Jesus is like believing in the literal existence of zombies. That is how some people believe that. This is a common analogy used by some atheists who argue against Christianity. It is a weak analogy because first, Jesus was said to be alive, not just undead. If God is assumed, then God had a reason to bring Jesus back. No such reason exists for zombies. Zombies eat brains. Jesus did not, as far as we know. This is a form of belief that is belief by atheists. And it is part of a weak analogy because it has no proof on the two concepts. Fifth is a slippery slope. Slippery slope is in logical, critical thinking, political, rhetoric, and case law is a consequentialist logical device in which a party asserts that a relatively small first step leads to a chain of related events, culminating in some significant effect. The core of the slippery slope argument is that a specific decision under debate is likely to result in unintended consequences. This type of argument is sometimes used as a form of fear mongering, in which the probable consequences of a given action are exaggerated in an attempt to scare the audience. For First example is that if you allow the students to redo this task, they are going to want to redo every assignment for the rest of the year. Second example is that if you let this child bring the permission slip late, there is no reason to ever set a deadline for anything again. This shows that the statement are actually statement that is trying to scare them, that if they don't do this, then they will result in something that might scare them. And for the next fallacy is that the accident fallacy. Accident fallacy is a deductively valid but unsound argument occurring in a statistical syllogism when an exception to a rule of thumb is ignored. The fallacy occurs when one attempts to apply a general rule to an irrelevant situation. For example, cutting people with knife is a crime. And other example is that surgeons cut people with knives, so surgeons are criminals. Like, well, do you see the relation? Yeah, that's relation. Hasty generalization in which a conclusion is not logically justified by sufficient or unbiased evidence. It can also be called insufficient sample. It is where a conclusion is not logically justified by sufficient or unbiased evidence. It can be called by many names. One of them is the one that I told you, which is the insufficient samples. And the examples for this type of fallacy is that, first example, 3 out of 4 school teachers prefer bright markers, but I only ask 4 teachers total. And second example is that Christine has a terrible experience with a boyfriend. She decided that all boys are mean. So that is all the 7 fallacy that I will be explaining for today, and thank you.